when you're fear. There's no easy way to hear. And all the memories you love to bring, with all the things that you hate to scream. So tell me, I'm hollow on the inside. There's no trying to hide from this monster inside me. So if you try to criticize me, like the world defines me, image of what I have become.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Buckeye Beat podcast. It has been way too long since we've done one of these. Now, you might be thinking, if you've seen one of these before, hey, where's the dude with the giant nose? Well, he is sick, allegedly. I say allegedly because I know he's getting ready to go to A-Town for the national championship, so I don't know if he's skipping out or what. But joining me today, if you are not familiar with this channel, this is my co-host for the Browns Beat podcast. What is your name, sir?
I would be Tristan.
You would be Tristan. So what we're gonna do today, we've missed a lot, right, on this podcast. Scheduling is not great. We have missed the entire playoff run as far as talking about it. But good news, we're here now. So what we're going to do for you guys today, we're going to talk about Ohio State, Texas. We're going to talk a little bit about Notre Dame, Penn State. And then we're going to get into the national championship, talk about how things look, how things match up, and anything else that falls in between. But first, Tristan, how are you doing? And what did you think of this weekend of college football?
Yeah, I'm doing great, Derek. I mean, between the college football playoff and the beginning of NFL playoffs, man, oh man, has it been just a bunch of fun watching football. Like, this is the most fun time of the year to be watching it and paying attention. And this is really the first year that I've really been engaged with college football. And I think I got into it at just the right time. Man, it has been insane. It's been awesome. Yeah, it's been so much fun. I cannot wait to break down these games with you and just kind of just talk more about the crazy excitement that's going on right now. It's awesome.
Yeah, It was a wild weekend. I mean, this is the first year of the 12-team playoff, and this is the traditional quote-unquote Final Four now. And it didn't disappoint, that's for sure. Both of these games had excitement in their own way. Notre Dame, Penn State was a snooze fest the whole way, and then you get to the bitter end, and it's just guns a-blazing. That was kind of crazy.
Anarchy. Yeah, it was insane. Awesome.
Yeah. And then Ohio State, Texas was a little bit of a different story. And let's dive into it. Ohio State beats Texas 28-14 in Dallas, which is crazy. Like, it's crazy to me. Part of me does feel a little bit bad for Quinn Ewers, a kid who dreamed of going to Texas. He's got his team in the playoffs, Final Four in Dallas, and you fall short. I mean, that is kind of a heartbreaker.
Yeah, it's devastating for him. I mean, we talk oftentimes about how great it would feel for the Browns to win. We're big time Brownies fans, right? But at the same time, it's like if either of us were at quarterback and we lost a big game, oh my gosh, it would be the worst feeling in the world. Like the high highs and the low lows. That's got to be what he's experiencing right now, and it's difficult. I mean, especially, and I'm sure we will talk all about it. It was a fantastic play by Jack Sawyer. Heartbreaking fashion to lose for him in particular.
Yeah, and in case you didn't know, if you didn't hear it the 800 billion times beforehand, they were roommates. You need to be reminded of that every 10 seconds. So this game, Tristan, was kind of interesting. It was 7-0 for the vast majority of this game. Ohio State, I think, I don't want to say they struggled, but they struggled against themselves. 9 penalties, 75 yards. And for me, it seemed like every one of those penalties was critical moments. Just absolutely drive-killing times for those flags to be flying. But it's 7-0 for the most part, and then game goes on. It's a little bit back and forth, kind of a defensive battle early on, and then we get towards the end of the first half. And Tristan, I don't know about you, but when Trevion Henderson hit that screen for 75 yards and a touchdown, boy, that was wild.
Yeah. Just out of nowhere. Out of nowhere. I mean, at that point in the game, right, Texas finally came back, got it to a tie game. And, with such limited time to go, figured, hey, you know what, maybe Ohio State can get a field goal here, right? Extend the lead a little bit. And what was it, 2 plays? And then or the first play?
Yeah, I think it was the first play.
The first play, yeah. By the way, fantastic play call by Brian Kelly. Because, I mean, looking at that game, you kind of talked about it in particular with the penalties. They made themselves one-dimensional. And when they got into those situations, Texas was just going crazy with the pass rush and getting at Will Howard as quick as they could. And it made it really, really hard to get a lot of things going in the pass game, especially when they're bracketing Jeremiah Smith, making sure that they do not let him impact the game whatsoever. So the penalties really are, for me, what really, really hindered Ohio State's performance the most. But when I look at that moment, that Trevion Henderson 75-yard touchdown off of a screen pass, it was exactly what Brian Kelly, it was a perfect play. Sorry. Yeah, Chip Kelly.
No,
oh my goodness. Forgive me. I'm just thinking about Notre Dame, Brian Kelly. So that's why it's yeah.
I let the first one slide, but I'm like, I can't let this continue.
I mean, come on, man. They're close enough. I'm kidding.
I get it.
but no, Chip, it was a fantastic play call, because at that point, it was kind of predictable what Texas was going to do. It was when you were in a position where Texas felt like you were one-dimensional, they were going to send the pass rush, and it was very, very repetitive in that way. And they became predictable, and they got caught. And so, yeah, fantastic. And Trevion Henderson, who did not have a great start to the game, had a chance to redeem himself. And man, oh man, that play, for me, that was the play of the game, because Texas comes back, they make it a tie game going into halftime. The momentum going into halftime is on Texas' side. Ohio State's feeling the pressure going into the locker room, and that one play just flips it entirely. And Texas is now going into the locker room, heads down. How do we let this happen? One play, how did we let that happen? And that for me was the moment that in my opinion, Ohio State kind of secured their win. Obviously, there was a lot of football left to play, but momentum is everything when you're going up against an opponent that's just more talented than you.
Yeah. And the biggest thing about that play, if you break it down, Will Howard, man, he was absolutely hooping at the beginning of this game. Will Howard is not the best quarterback in the world, but when he is on, he is on. And he was throwing into some insane windows beginning of this game, right? He was doing some great things. Flag, drive killers, right? We were doing good things. And then you get to the end of the half, and it's okay, you only got, I think we had 15 seconds on the clock at that point, or something very minuscule as far as time goes. And then bam, snap. Will Howard holds on to that thing to the very last second. And Tristan, if he didn't do that, I don't know that this goes all the way, because he holds onto that ball, throws it last second. The blockers at that point were set up perfectly. Trevion does what Trevion does, takes it to the house. I couldn't have said it any better. Momentum swing completely back to Ohio State, because at that point, Ohio State was they were fighting an uphill battle, because I kept looking at my friend and I'm like, hey, like, I know we're up 7-0. It's only 7. Like, all it takes is a pick six, a fumble. All of a sudden, they're back in it, and momentum is completely changed. And right on cue, Trevion comes through. And as far as on the ground, he had 6 carries, 42 yards, so nothing crazy. Judkins, I do want to talk about Judkins in this game. Obviously, we're only at halftime, but man, I don't know what he took pregame, but that dude came out with his hair on fire. He was ready to hit people, bro. Like the block on the first drive. Did you see that?
I think I did. If I'm thinking of the right one, I'm pretty sure. Oh, fantastic block. Yeah.
Dude, it was crazy, because the DB was like sitting there like, all right, it's coming. Boom! He's just dead. Like,
oh yeah. It's one of those where, like, he probably, like, if he was a Brown, he would have gotten a text from Myles Garrett like, hey, get ready to pee in a cup, dude. Like, there, you know,
yeah.
You see that performance. Yeah, no, NFL's random drug testing you for sure. He still might, honestly, because he was an animal in this game. I mean, we can talk about just, the talented backs. I texted you in the middle of this game. Like, how crazy would it be if the Browns like decided to go out and get both of these guys, because it would just reinvent the backfield. Like, it would be awesome, and I love how both of them play. So it's
And the thing was, like, neither one of them had great statistical games. It was more like the moments. Like, Judkins only had 9 carries for 36 yards, but he had 2 touchdowns. Like, it was critical moments where those two really, really, really came through. So, end of the second half, come out, and we're in back and forth time, right? This is critical moments. And I don't want to fast forward too far, but I would be remiss if we didn't get to the end here and talk about the biggest, most memorable moment of the game. Texas, they're driving down to tie the game at 21-21. And at this point, as an Ohio State fan, and if you are an Ohio State fan, you're probably thinking, oh, we've seen this song and dance before, where this is a team that we definitely could beat, and it slips away. And at that point, I was thinking, okay, they go down, they score, it's 21-21. Actually, I'm sorry. Let's rewind a little bit prior. How about Will Howard pulling a Daniel Jones on that drive before?
Oh my God, it was hilarious. Oh my
dude.
Oh, he literally could have skipped into the end zone. It was fantastic. And he tripped over, what was it? I think it was Chris Fowler on the call said he tripped over the 20-yard line.
Yeah.
Just
dude.
Beautiful.
Insane. But I mean, at the time I was like, you know what? I'm kind of happy about that, because it killed more clock. And that was a fear. And then Judkins finishes off that drive, scores the touchdown. Now let's go back to where we were. So Texas is going down to hopefully tie the game up, and you have a pass interference call that puts them on the goal line, and it's like, all right, you know, how is this going to end? And Sark, I think, is a really good coach. I do. I think he is a good coach. But man, that is a play call that is going to haunt him forever. And I understand, because like when you watch the film for Ohio State defensively, your best avenue of attack is, especially in the goal line. Ohio State's had the best goal line defense in college football. Your best avenue of attack is get out on the edges. But listening to Joel Klatt talk about that play is so funny because he's like, the ball's negative 5 yards before it's going anywhere. Like, when you're on the 1 yard line, I get it. I understand. But what are we doing? What are we doing? And y'all know the story. Quinn Ewers drops back, must get situation, and his roommate, in case you didn't know, Jack Sawyer, comes around the corner, strip sack. One of the most iconic plays, you could argue, in the history of the Ohio State football team. 28-14. And before I let you go, I just want to say I'm so happy for Jack Sawyer because, boy, that pick six that he had in the Michigan game, it was either pick six or pick. I don't even remember. But the fact that I don't remember tells you everything you need to know because we lost. And that sucks. That really sucks for him. This is an Ohio kid living his dream. And for him to be able to get this moment in a game to send this team to the national championship, boy, what a moment. What a memory. What a memory. What was your reaction when that was going on?
Yeah, so instantly, like, in terms of like live football, easily probably the best goal line stand I've ever seen. Just hands down, just done beautifully by Ohio State. And that play call that you mentioned with Sark, that run, obviously he will, like, that's when he's going to be staring at the ceiling at night, wishing he could have that moment back. Because yeah, it was not a good play call at all. I thought that what the right thing to do for me personally, if you were going to try to attack the edge, what I would have liked to see in that kind of area, so not like a flood concept, but so kind of like a design quarterback rollout, give Quinn Ewers, or actually have it be Arch Manning, who actually can run the football. Just a thought, 1 yard away from the end zone, maybe get a quarterback in there that can run. Do a design quarterback rollout where Arch would be running at the edge, and if a pass was there, a cheap little dump off that's in the end zone, go for it. That for me would have been the play call, because that at that point, like you said, it kind of nullifies the front seven a little bit and makes it entirely up to the secondary for Ohio State. And I for me, that would have been my play call there in that moment. But I do want to say something that hasn't been touched on, at least by us, and I know a lot of people have been. The play by Caleb Downs on that pitch was fantastic. I mean, just instinctual. Most other college safeties, just even guys that are at a high level, they will see that, but they won't make it a play that ends up resulting in a huge loss like that. And that's just the player that he is, and it shows. Like, he's a really, really good instinctual football player, really smart football player, really athletic. I really like him as a player. Every bit of him that I've been able to see so far. I obviously don't follow Ohio State as closely as you do, but it just, whenever I turn on his tape, I just see a guy that's a difference maker. And that was a play, that was a moment where Sark's play call was not good, but the biggest reason why it wasn't good was because it gave Caleb Downs an opportunity to absolutely wreck that goal line, or the goal to go scenario. And he did it. And that's why, for me personally, that's what Sark will regret the most, is that he gave Caleb Downs an opportunity to do something like that. He shouldn't have given him that opportunity.
And Caleb Downs is the difference between good and great.
Yeah.
Like, he is, the stuff that he does like what you mentioned. I'm so glad you brought him up because I was about to bring him up anyway. The game that he had, right? He is somebody. I heard somebody on Twitter was saying like, "Oh, Caleb Downs hasn't been what he was at Alabama." Yes, he has. Yeah, Caleb Downs is every bit of what we expected and what we hoped he would be. He is an outstanding football player, and you said it to a T. I mean, that is the most critical point in that game to set up what ended up happening with Jack Sawyer. But for him on that play, run downhill, make that open field tackle, and blow it up is incredible. And honestly, I know we're going to get to preview the championship game a little bit here later. But I definitely think, given Notre Dame's play style, he's going to be a difference maker. Caleb Downs is an absolute nightmare to go up against. And it's not even just, like, yeah, he's good in the secondary, but when you get him going downhill, brother, he's unreal. He is unreal. That entire Ohio State secondary, him, Ransom, just absolutely playing as a unit at the right time.
Yeah. There's so many good players on that Ohio State defense, and I think it is one of those where we look back in a few years and we say, like, oh, wow, we didn't actually appreciate just how good this guy was. And the reason why we'll be saying those things is because we would have seen guys like Caleb Downs, because of his greatness, like how good he is, the way he can impact the game. I honestly, the fact that he can be so young and to sniff out a play like that, and it's not like he did it against Minnesota State or whatever, like he did it against probably coming into the season the second most talented team in college football. Just it shows that he's a fantastic football player, and I honestly I can't wait to see what he can become. I'm really excited to see what he looks like in the championship game. I'm really excited to see what he looks like at the next level too.
Yeah, he is a one of a kind player. There's a lot of one of a kind players on this team. And what sucks is, like, as good as this defense is, Sonny Styles is somebody that's moved from strong safety to linebacker, and he's still learning the position. Like, he still has a lot to learn. We'll see if he comes out in the draft. He's somebody, if he does, I think he could be a late round steal potentially, because that kid has all the tools in the world. He just doesn't know completely how to play the position yet. And in this game, he struggled a bit. A lot of the running back just getting away from him. But imagine if he had another year, right, playing linebacker, and he had more experience, and he was in this spot now, more improved, dude. Like, it's not even fair. Like, it's not even fair. The game as a whole, Ohio State was a little sloppy. I think they kind of tried to do, they almost got trapped into playing the same way they did against Michigan, where Michigan came out and they were like, no, you're playing our brand. And Ohio State didn't have to, but for some reason we did. We not here to talk about that, but Texas kind of did the same thing, where at one point in that game it was really back and forth, and I started to get worried, but thank God, pulled it out, got it done. As far as numbers on the day, Will Howard was 24-33, 289 yards, touchdown, and a pick. I already talked about the two running backs. As far as receivers go, Ibuka did what he does, 5 receptions, 51 yards. You mentioned it. We're going to talk a little bit about this more as far as what Notre Dame can do to win the national championship. But Jeremiah Smith, 1 reception, 3 yards. Man, they absolutely bracketed the hell out of him. Like, they came into this game and said, all right, if you're going to beat us, it's not going to be this kid. And that might sound like a bad thing to hear, 1 reception, 3 yards, but look at what he did for everybody else. I mean, Carnell Tate stepped up 87 yards on 7 receptions. G. Scott, who has done nothing ever, was getting some pretty good receptions himself. Like that is the one thing about this team. You can take away Jeremiah Smith if you want to. And nobody has prior to this. Nobody has. Texas did it, and it still wasn't enough. That is how talented this Ohio State team is as far as the different levels they can attack you offensively.
Not to mention the fact that on top of them taking away Jeremiah Smith, they kept on shooting themselves in the foot.
Yeah.
They made it harder on themselves, and they still, like, that. Honestly, that's the craziest part for me when it comes to, like, thinking back about that Travion Henderson touchdown. Like, so many times up to that point, they had been shooting themselves in the foot, and then just, one little screen, and it's in the end zone? Like, how deflating would that be for Texas? Fighting, clawing, like, getting every, like, I shouldn't say every bit of good luck, but getting some good fortune on your side. You feel like, get back in that game. Like, that for me, like, that was the moment in the game. But obviously, the Jack Sawyer play was fantastic too. I mean, honestly, for me, Derek, I was just really impressed with, in particular, Ohio State's defense and their resilience and their toughness. When I watched them go up against Oregon, I was really, really disappointed. I know you share those feelings too.
Oregon the first time.
Yes, Oregon the first time. Let me. Yeah.
Second time was
fantastic. Oh my
goodness. I don't know what that was.
Yeah, that was awesome. But just, I remember, Derek, at one point early in the season, I remember texting you and saying, like, hey, I think this Ohio State football team has a chance to, like, go down as one of the greatest football teams, like, in college football history. And you rightfully said way too early for that. But, looking back at the performances that we've gotten so far from Ohio State in the college football playoff, it shows that if they would have had this, what they have right now, what they've got in the bottle right now and they've captured, if they would have had this from the beginning of the year, I think it absolutely could have ended up being that.
Oh, yeah.
So, with that being said, national championship game, it's not going to be handed to you for sure. And I'm really, really excited for this game.
Yeah. But there's another team that played to get in the national championship, and that was the Notre Dame Fighting Irish, winning 27-24 over the Penn State Nittany Lions. This will probably be quicker than our Ohio State one, but man, this game was a snooze fest. Bro, I was over at my friend's house. We were watching the game, and I'm like, this sucks. Like, this is awful. I mean, this was, I want to say it was like 10-10 for the majority of that game. Just a back and forth defensive battle. A lot of just sloppiness at times within that game. Even going into the third quarter, I want to say it was like 14-17 or something like that. And then all of a sudden, boom, these teams start waking up a little bit. Crunch time comes down. Just to give the numbers first before we talk about some details, because we're not going to break it down quarter by quarter like we did for Ohio State. But Riley Leonard was 15-23, 223 yards, touchdown, 2 picks. Jeremiah Love, the really good running back, on a knee brace. He was impressive in this game. He is a hell of a player. 11 carries, 45 yards, and a touchdown. And then Leonard on the ground, this will be a key point we talk about in the national championship, 18 carries, 35 yards, and a touchdown, which might not seem like a lot, but when they needed him, he came through on the ground. Not as much through the air, but on the ground, he came through. Jaden Greathouse, this dude, 7 receptions, 105 yards, and a touchdown. That one play where he took it to the house, it was crazy. He broke ankles on the first corner he was lined up at, and then the safety that was over the top, bro, he put him in a blender too. That was one of the craziest things I've ever seen.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, he's going to, like, clip that thing up, and it's going to be on his phone forever. I mean, you never get a moment like that, like, hardly ever, where you see a guy just genuinely break somebody else's ankles. It was crazy.
Yeah,
It's awesome.
First thing I said was, can he come out of the draft this year? He cannot, unfortunately. But Anais Williams, 5 receptions, 66 yards. Mitchell Evans, 5 for 58. So, with Notre Dame specifically, let's just dive into them kind of real fast first. Story of this game for me, Tristan, was dink-a-dunk, run the ball between Jeremiah Love and then Riley Leonard coming through when he needed to, and then hit the big play every once in a while. I feel like that literally was it. Like they just moved the chains, and yeah, obviously there was a lot of turnovers in this game, which made it crazy. But at the end of the day, I think Notre Dame won this game by getting turnovers, but also just converting. Like at the end of the day, they were converting, moving the chains, and just kind of gutting it out. Again, first half sucked. Third quarter even sucked. Tristan, let's dive into this fourth quarter and kind of the story of this game.
Yeah. Instantly when I think of this game, I think of the Jeremiah Love hurdle. Oh my goodness. I mean, commentators were saying that he promised the coaching staff he wasn't going to hurdle because of his knee. He wasn't going to be able to. Guy jumps off of his bad knee, hurdles another man, jumps off of his good knee, right? Hurdles another man, sticks the landing with his good knee. Like, the athleticism in that singular play. He has more athletic skill in his hamstring than I do in my entire body. Like it's incredible. This guy, he's such a spectacular runner. And I was talking to Tony Battaglio, friend of the show. I don't know if you're friends with him, but this guy.
Not friend of the show.
Not friend of the show. Enemy of the show. But earlier, we were talking shortly after the college football regular season ended, and talking about like Heisman conversation, stuff like that. He said that he felt like Jeremiah Love, in terms of skill at the running back position, was the best in college football, right? And Ashton Jeanty obviously had a better year as a running back, but he felt like in terms of skill, Jeremiah Love was the best. And I instantly thought, well, you're a homer, so write you off. But the more and more I've had an opportunity to watch him, he's a special football player. And you saw throughout that game where when Jeremiah Love was able to get the football in his hands in space, it's just watch out. And for me, he was the biggest difference maker in this game, because I felt like in terms of Penn State on offense, moving the football on the ground just was not working for them, at least at a certain point in the game, I should say. And their passing game was completely incompetent. We'll definitely talk about that more. And then you look at Notre Dame, like outside of the run game, there wasn't a whole lot going on, but because they were still able to be effective with the run game later on in the game, it opened up the opportunities that you saw in the pass game, like to Greathouse. So it's one of those where they are going to play a brand of football. Just looking at it, like when I look at this matchup against Ohio State, like it's going to be a brand of football where if Ohio State tries to play that game, it's going to get very ugly. So, but overall, impressed with Notre Dame's performance, though.
Yeah, absolutely. As far as Jeremiah Love, you talked about the hurdle, and he did it a couple times in the game too. It wasn't even like he did it once.
Oh, I know. It was the one big one that was like, oh wow, that was what. Yeah, just watching the slow-mo of him quite literally hopping off of one leg jumping over a man and landing on the same leg he jumped off of. That's insane. That's insane to me.
Yeah, and what impressed me the most about him, like I don't think people understand that wasn't just a brace. That was a hey, don't walk on this leg type of brace, and he's playing a football game. And there was times in that game where he like just absolute gritty performance, just nothing but grit and heart. Because there was times where he really like planted that leg, his bad leg, planted that and drove through. And it's like, man, I know and it sucks because if they go on to lose the national championship game, he's the one player that it's like, man, I feel bad for, because this dude has come out, put his heart on his sleeve, and just absolutely done everything that he could for this program. And they beat Penn State. I would like to come out and say I absolutely despise Penn State, not because they're a rival to Ohio State, but because this offense is atrocious and pitiful. I know they don't have receivers, but cut out the gimmicks. Like, I felt like every single snap was a gimmick. You had Tyler Warren, and I know he was a former quarterback in high school, but geez, Tyler Warren doesn't need to be not under center, but coming in as your Wildcat quarterback every other play. Like, what are we doing? It drove me crazy watching that game, Penn State on offense, right? And yes, they have two great running backs, and that is their bread and butter. They run the football, and Tyler Warren is a monster, but it's like, that gimmick crap is only going to get you so far. And I think ultimately, I think that played a part in why there were so many turnovers in this game. There is no offensive structure to that team. And yeah, they could have ran the ball on the outside and hit that wide zone run scheme, what we've seen the Browns used to do. Like if they did that, I think this is and I know it was 27-24, but I think it's more of a back and forth offensively versus turnover. Cause Penn State, man, it drove me crazy. And no, Drew Aller, he was getting beat up on Twitter and beat up on social media. And did he play a terrible game? Yeah, he did. I mean, to me, I can't defend it. He did not play well. But where I feel for Drew is quarterbacks get in rhythm. And you can't get in rhythm when you're running the ball every play, and then every other play your tight end's coming in at quarterback and you're out at receiver. And then when you're coming in to throw the ball, you're asked to throw a short little dump-off pass. He didn't complete, I want to say, this is definitely not the stat, but he only completed like 3 passes over 15 yards or something like that in this game.
Yeah.
Like,
you want to hear one better?
He didn't complete a pass to a single receiver. I know.
Yeah. A single wide receiver. Not a single one he was able to complete a pass to. And listen, you can say that's on Drew Aller, and he absolutely did not have a good football game. But at the same time, I think it says a lot if a receiver cannot catch a football, or get a reception in a football game. Yeah, I'll let you finish up before I go.
No, it drove me crazy. But yeah, I mean, the picks and stuff, yeah, it's on Drew, but at the same time, it's like, that kid needs to get as far away from Penn State as possible. Like at the end of the day, for Penn State, right? Let's just talk in this game. That was preventable. They could have won this game. They absolutely could have won this game. The way that this was such a low-scoring back and forth until the end, and then it became kind of a shootout last minute. Penn State has the more playmaker sounds like the wrong word, but I'm saying the combination of what Tyler Warren can do, what both of the running backs can do, their backup tight end even, is pretty solid. Like, they have guys. It's just the way that they choose to use them, man. Like, what are we doing? What are we doing? So, Penn State turned the ball over a bunch, and I know Riley Leonard had 2 picks himself, but man, if you're Penn State, if you're a Penn State fan, go fund me, $10, $5, go get a receiver. Like, I don't know. I don't know what you, somebody on that campus has to be able to catch a ball, right? Somebody.
Yeah, somebody can create separation on a route, surely. Well said, Derek. I mean, here's the thing. Like, I get what you're saying with like them over relying on a lot of the cutesy stuff, the Wildcat stuff, and all that. And I agree with you. It's ridiculous. They're overdoing it. And yeah, the offensive game plan did nothing to help Drew Aller in terms of getting into a rhythm, getting comfortable throwing against this Notre Dame secondary. Like, there really weren't any times in this game where it felt like he was comfortable in the pocket. And it wasn't because necessarily he was getting pressured, because he would go like he'd throw one ball and they would run, Wildcat, just all this different stuff. And it's just, let him be under center. Let him be back there. Let him make reads and throw the football. For me, it's ridiculous that Penn State can be the level of program that they are and have that big of a lack of talent at wide receiver. It's inexcusable. I mean, Derek, if I were to tell you, like, hypothetically, like Carnell Tate goes to Penn State, right? Becomes the number 1 guy. Obviously he would be. How much better do you think that offense is? Oh, you're muted.
It's drastically better, and it shows how terrible Julian Fleming is. Because
yeah, well, here's the thing, Julian Fleming, I think he's an okay number 2 wide receiver, but for the level of program that Penn State is, he's just not good enough. But Carnell Tate, like, if he goes to that offense, they have a boundary threat instantly, and it opens up so much more. It's just, for me, Ohio State didn't lose this game in the Orange Bowl. They lost it in the offseason, because the way that they constructed their roster at wide receiver killed them. It did. I'm just disappointed, really, because a program that big, right? And listen, I'm a huge Drew Aller supporter, right? I love the raw tools that he has, and there have been stuff that I've seen on tape that I really enjoy and really like to see. He really didn't even have a chance to succeed in that game. And listen, you can say that I'm making excuses for the guy, whatever. I don't think that there's any quarterback in college football that steps into that situation and does a lot better. Certainly, some guys probably could do a little bit better, but and he didn't play well. But at the same time, there's a lot of reasons outside of that for why he didn't play well. I think Penn State, if they don't get like three receivers in the portal that are actually like legit players, like it's just going to be a waste. Like we know what will happen next year. I don't know. It's just, that was a winnable game for them, but they didn't construct their roster in a way and conduct their offense in a way that would have let them win that game.
Yeah, and it's, I mean, listen, let's be real, and I guess this can be our transition. Notre Dame, Ohio State, national championship game. 2 of the biggest brands in college football history going at it. Regardless of what you think is going to happen or could happen, this is what they wanted, right? They wanted a team with a fan base like Notre Dame and a history like Notre Dame going up against a team like Ohio State. Because for everybody who's going to take this from the perspective of, oh, well, Ohio State, I hope they don't win because they've been there, done that. It's been a decade. It has been a decade since Ohio State has won a national championship. Georgia has how many national championships? Alabama has how many national championships? Clemson has how many national championships? Ohio State has one. One. And I'm not saying that I take that for granted. I'm not. But this team, the teams that this program has constructed over these last 10 years should have won more than one national championship. And the fact that you have an Ohio State team like this going up against a program like Notre Dame, this is a huge game. As far as like ratings go, boy, this is going to be probably the most watched college football championship of all time. So I am very excited. So let's get into this here. As far as what could happen and things like that. Will Howard, well, okay. Riley Leonard is not that great of a quarterback. Will Howard is not that great of a quarterback. But the one thing that these two guys have is they have heart and they have will. And that, for me, is what I think could make this game interesting. Because against Penn State, Riley Leonard was coming up in big-time situations when it mattered. I talked about it. He had the 18 carries, 35 yards, and the touchdown. That might not seem like a lot, but he came through when it mattered. And yeah, he might not be the best throwing the ball, and he might not be the best. Certainly not what he was expected to be for Notre Dame. But as a leader of men, he is doing the job. Will Howard comes into Ohio State. Is he good enough? Can he get the job done? And there's certainly been plenty of criticism of Will Howard over the course of this year. The way that he has stepped up as a leader and taken this program to where they are right now, you have to give him the respect that he deserves. I think he is the modern JT Barrett, where is he the best? No, but he's a leader and he can do good enough for you. And he has stepped up himself in these last couple games. He didn't play his best game against Texas, but he got the job done. But it is heart and will that is going to make this game very interesting, and it could make it very competitive. Now, when we break down everything else, Tristan, this is where it gets interesting for me. Talked about it for a little bit before we hit record. Notre Dame's defense is very good, and I think they're absolutely going to do the exact same thing Texas did as far as how to handle Jeremiah Smith. The question becomes, do they have enough to offset not just Jeremiah Smith, but limit Carnell Tate, limit Ibuka, limit what they can do in the run game? I don't know. My answer to that question is no. I don't think they can, and I don't think they will. Notre Dame offensively, I think they could. They're frustrating. I mean, against Penn State, like I said, half of that game was them converting in big-time moments. Going up against an Ohio State defense like this, they're going to have to be on it. And Leonard in particular is going to have to really be smart, with what he's doing here. This is not a game that you can afford the turnovers. And I know Will has had turnovers of his own, but you give this Ohio State defense the ball and let them go out and play and dictate the game, it's not going to be pretty. This could be very, very, very ugly quickly. And you don't believe me? Go watch Oregon. Go watch Ohio State, Oregon first in the playoff game. But if Notre Dame comes out and they are able to run the ball, they're able to convert, control the clock, play a game similar to what Michigan did, and Ohio State has some of the mistakes we had against Texas, and not necessarily get into rhythm offensively, this could be a game. I don't see it that way, personally. I don't think this is going to be close, and I don't say that as a fan. I say that looking at this from a football perspective, I think Notre Dame is just simply outmatched. What say you, sir?
Yeah, so if we look at it strictly in terms of talent, Ohio State's the more talented team. Hands down. It's not a question. For me, when I look at these defenses, I respect Marcus Freeman a lot as a coach. I think he's a very, very good coach, and I think his defense will come ready to play. So for me, where this ends up, where I think that this game will be won or lost for either team, is I think it's going to be Ohio State's passing attack versus Notre Dame's rushing attack offensively. Who can be more productive? Because if Notre Dame gets to a point where they're not able to rush the football and it's going to end up being on the shoulder of Riley Leonard, it's not going to work. It's not, because the pass rush of Ohio State, the secondary of Ohio State can kill you. And I think he's a good quarterback. He's not a great one. And especially in terms of his arm talent, I think it's decent, but it's they don't have a Jeremiah Smith. They don't have an Emeka Ibuka to help, similarly like with Will Howard, where, if he doesn't throw a perfect ball, or maybe he has a moment where his wide receiver just creates so much separation. It's not really going to be like that for Riley Leonard in this game. I just don't see that. So that's for me why Notre Dame has to have success on the ground running the football if they're going to beat Ohio State. And then vice versa. Ohio State has to be able to have success passing the football against Notre Dame. We saw against Texas that they bracketed Jeremiah Smith, and it made things a little bit rocky. Obviously, they ended up coming out in the end and doing good, but I don't think they have to be able to be better than what they were against Texas, because I just think that with it being a national championship game, if you play it close, you have way more to risk in terms of momentum flipping in the opposite direction, because it's not just a matter of, oh, hey, we'll win this game. It's, oh, hey, we'll win the national championship and we'll forever go into our school's legacy. And, it's going to be a lot more. So that's where I could see this going out of Ohio State's hands, is if they're not able to shut down Notre Dame's rushing attack and they are not able to get the passing attack going, I will have concerns. That for me is how Notre Dame will have to win. If Ohio State can either stop Notre Dame's rush or find success in the pass game, they're going to win. 100% they're going to win. I just think that with the talent that this Ohio State team has, the margin of error is a lot bigger. Notre Dame kind of has to play a very, very particular way if they're going to come out ahead in this one. If Notre Dame wins, it's a 21-14 game, 21-17 game. If Ohio State wins, it's like 30-17, something like that. That's how I kind of see this game, is who's going to be more successful in executing their game plan. And I'm not going to count out Notre Dame. I'm not. I think that Marcus Freeman's a fantastic coach. And I think that their offense showed against Penn State that they have enough to be able to get past a really, really good defense. Penn State's defense is very, very good. Abdul Carter is an unbelievable player. I think that they have enough to. It's about, will they have a perfect enough game plan to do it? And I'm with you, Derek. I don't think they do. I don't.
Yeah. I hate to say it because I feel like I'm being biased, but I'm not. Like, this game could really, really get out of hand. And all it takes, and I think it's as simple as this: what happens if Ohio State gets the ball, right? Let's say Notre Dame wins the coin toss, defers. Ohio State gets the ball, goes down and scores first drive. All of a sudden, Notre Dame's playing from behind to start. And I'm not saying you have to abandon everything then, but what happens if there is a 3-and-out, and then Ohio State kicks a field goal, or God forbid, scores again? I mean, at that point, it's that snowball effect. And I think for Notre Dame in this game, you got to stop that snowball from rolling downhill, because that snowball is a Ferrari that is firing on all cylinders right now. And what Ohio State has done in this playoff run is nothing short of remarkable. They played a really good Tennessee team, and I know people are going to roll their eyes at that. Tennessee's got a heck of a defensive line, a good run game. Ohio State boat raced them. Comes in against Oregon, a team that was number 1 in the country, a team that had its hair on fire, playing really good football. Beat Ohio State early on in the year. And Ohio State completely boat raced them. Not even close. Like, it wasn't even competitive for 95% of that game. Go into Texas, like you said it, probably the second best team, arguably in the country. Not even just going into the playoffs, arguably all year. Like, I don't think Georgia is that great. I think Georgia is very average compared to past Georgia teams. And Ohio State pulls out a win against Texas. Yes, it was tougher, okay, but still, you got the job done. You beat Tennessee, Oregon, Texas. Now you're going into a game against Notre Dame. And I'm not saying Notre Dame's not a good football team, because they are. They certainly are, and they have talent. But Jeremiah Love is banged up. You know what I mean? I'm not saying he's not effective, because he certainly is. But he's banged up. The defense, they're missing some players, some key players. Yes, Watts is good. He's great. I love him. But at some point, you were just straight up outmatched. And the only way that I think Notre Dame doesn't get outmatched is if they play really good situational football. And Marcus Freeman is a great coach. I agree. He is a great coach. And I think he will be competitive in college football as long as he is in college football, which he's rumored for the Bears job. Funny enough. But for me, Tristan, this Ohio State team, I think, is unstoppable right now. And I don't say that as a fan. I say that as somebody who has seen what they've done all year. This team that you're watching right now has not been the team all year. Like, this team is firing. Absolutely firing on all cylinders. And again, even if they come out and they are, it's just going to be a matter of how they adapt to everybody else. If they come out and they shut down Jeremiah Smith, these other guys can step up. If Texas proved anything, that's what it proves. So this is a big game. This is a big game. Ohio State, regardless of the result, is going to be losing a lot of really, really, really talented players. And they know that too. And yes, Notre Dame is a good football team. They haven't done it in our lifetime. And I know being in this game again, they're going to want to win, yes. But this Ohio State team right now, like, this is, I'm telling you, I don't say it lightly. I don't know how you stop this team. I really, really don't. So my prediction, you kind of gave it away a little bit. I think it's a 34-17 game. Ohio State wins.
Yeah, I'm thinking along the same lines. I don't have an exact score. Yeah, because for me, it's just Notre Dame will have to make Ohio State's offense one-dimensional while also keeping their offense from being one-dimensional. That's against that talented of a team at Ohio State. It's a nearly impossible task. Nearly impossible. So, yeah, I share the same feelings as you. For me, game, you could practically call it over if Ohio State gets up by more than one possession. If it's a more than one possession game for Ohio State at any point, I think you can pretty much wrap it up and put a bow on it. But yeah, it's regardless. It's two teams that are at this point well coached, that are playing really, really good football and play with a lot of grit, toughness. You know, it's going to be a very interesting game to watch, because you're absolutely right. Ohio State could end up getting out on the front foot and game's over by the end of by the middle of the first quarter. Or it's possible that, maybe Notre Dame breaks a couple runs, and now it's Ohio State that's got to play catch up. It's the start to this game will be so important. So important. I cannot stress that enough.
Yeah, and funny enough, I don't think it's going to be apples to apples, but I could see this game being similar to the Ohio State-Oregon National Championship, where it could start off and be a little bit back and forth, and then at some point it's just... I could see it.
Yeah.
Now, with that being said, before we wrap up here, I just want to throw this little nugget out here. Don't let it catch you off guard if Ryan Day is gone, win or lose. I've heard rumblings. I'll just put it like that. I've heard rumblings that he wins, jumps ship to the NFL. There's nothing more he can do here. And if he loses, I still think there's a chance. I just want to get that on the record. I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm just saying I've heard some very, very interesting rumblings. I'll just leave it at that.
Okay.
So yeah. Go Bucks, everybody. I'll probably have, I don't know, Cozy still wants to talk about it. So you might get more preview and coverage of this game later in the week, but who knows? All right. Go Bucks. See you in the next video.
See you guys.